Hi, my name is Sarah McMains, and this is my review of my spiritual retreat for session 6. I chose to do the video, assuming as I will always take the chance not to write a paper. But anyway, so I spent 3 hours on the beach. My family and I are in Panama City Beach right now, and I chose to do my retreat on the beach in the evening. I just finished it. And I am going to go through the questions accordingly and just answer them based on my experience and what happened. So when I started this retreat, I took my chair out and sat on the sand for about 3 hours, like we were instructed, with no technology and no other people, and without the occasional person walking by. I tried to find a spot on the beach where there wasn't as many people, and I started with one verse that reminded me of the attributes of God, as Bo was explaining throughout his book on the 4 things that he really focused on each day, was the attributes of God, the works of God, the relationship to God, and the character that I would like to cultivate. And I think that's a really good pattern to go about. So I started with this retreat on the attributes of God. So a verse that really stuck with me, the one verse that I started with was Exodus 3:14, and that's an attribute of God where he states, "I am who I am." And I think that that's just a very powerful verse that is able to um, allow me to really mull over it. So I mulled over that for a really long time. And then I decided I'm just going to flip my Bible open and see where that goes. And I ended up landing on Psalms 89, and verses 1 through 2, 5 through 8 really stuck out to me. I also wrote all of this down, so that's what I'm looking at and glancing at as the verses in order on the way that I went through it. And they also talk and discuss about the characteristics and attributes of God, which is another really great thing. And then I continued in the Psalms for a bit, and then I moved to John, and then I moved to Psalms 47 again, and then I went back to Psalms 96, and then I moved and I just really honestly just mulled over those for a bit and really told myself the characteristics of God and reminded myself that. So it was a really good thing for me. So, going along with the questions that we were asked for this project this week was starting with number 1 is what attributes of God came to mind and how did this affect you? And I really, when I was going through these verses that I explained, I found myself making a list as well with my pen and paper of the adjectives that I found that came to mind when I was reading the scripture and just really meditating on it. And a few of those were great, faithful, holy, feared, almighty, loving, royal, creator, strong, friend. And these are just words that popped into my head briefly as I was really thinking about it. Also, that were mentioned throughout scripture. But one of them that I really was like interesting when I thought of it in my head was feared. And I've always seen God as a very strong protector. And so sometimes I like to remind myself that my God is feared and that he loves me and he protects me. And I think that was a really good needed refresher for me when that attribute popped up. So question 2 asks us, what works of God did you focus on and how did this affect you? And I spent a lot of the time really just familiarizing myself and just reminding myself about the characteristics. So when I moved to the works of God, a lot of that was me equating his characteristics to the examples of his work. Creator was one of them, about the attributes that kept popping into my head. And I found that, focusing on the things that he created. So the creation story, I love the creation story. I always have. Genesis is one of my favorite books of the Bible just because there's so many hidden gems and so much beauty within it. I really spent some time there. And then, honestly, the Old Testament, I worked my way through and flipping and finding different, like Exodus. I spent some time in Exodus reminding myself of his faithfulness towards the Israelites throughout that, and the works and the wonders he provided. And that was a really refreshing reminder that not only is he feared, he's holy, he's faithful, and his works prove it. So question 3 asks us, what aspects of your relationship with God did you focus on and how did this affect you? So when I started to move through, I reminded myself of the works, I reminded myself of the characteristics, I brought it together. Then I started asking myself, Lord, how can I be faithful to you, and show me in our relationship how you're faithful to me. Show me how you love me. Show me how you created me. Show me your strength, how loving you are. And I focused on a verse. I don't know why it was just this one verse, but it was this one verse that it was actually the Psalm. So it was Psalms 143. And I think that psalm is beautiful for someone who is hurting and calling out for God. And Psalms 143 is a very near and dear psalm to my heart because there's been many a time in my life where I have sat on the ground in tears just reading it and praying it to Him. And one of these examples, I love this verse because it constantly reminds me that God answers. He answers and He hears. And David is a phenomenal example of someone whose heart is bleeding for God, where he constantly is reaching out and explaining to God, Lord, I'm not worthy of you. The enemy pursues me. You know, I'm beaten and battered and broken, and I just need you. Can you please come and save me? And I really relate to being beaten, battered, and broken. And so when I was focusing on this, I was like, Lord, I love that your relationship with people and with me is one that's so authentic and real, that I'm allowed to come to you with my pain and with my brokenness and talk to you about it like a real relationship, where most people sit there and think that a relationship with God is not a real relationship. But I sit here and say it is, that I'm allowed to bring my hurt, my pain, and my anger to Him. So that's a really good reminder for me during this time. I also focused on, the classic verses of, just reminding yourself that the Lord is faithful and that you desire a relationship with Him. And that, for example, I have it written down. It's Numbers 23:19. Oh, sorry. It's wrong verse. It's Numbers 6:24 through 26. And it says, O Lord, bless us and keep us. O Lord, make your face shine up upon us and be gracious to us. O Lord, turn your face towards us and give us peace. Just reaching out to God and allowing His face to shine on us, keeping us with that relationship. It was just a really beautiful verse. So question 4 was really interesting for me because it allowed me to do a lot of introspection on, in the midst of this, in the midst of me reminding myself of all these, and this is probably about an hour and a half in when I'm actually seriously thinking about what personal characteristics that I wanted to improve on. And I found myself making a list in the sand of the things that I found were difficult for me, like patience or self-control and various other things, but mainly those two. And I have patience, but sometimes when I'm tired, I'm hungry, and I'm battered and beaten and broken, I really don't have patience. I don't think that anybody really has patience in those moments, but specifically in those moments, I find myself to be the most angry and the most miserable, especially when I'm waiting for things from God. And one of those being like, I got out of a really bad relationship a couple of years ago, and I remember sitting there and being like, okay, where's my guy? Where's my right man? And it took 5 years for that to happen. Yeah. And so I was angry with God in the midst of that. And I found myself, even in those moments, being like, God, give me patience, allow me to focus on you, give me patience, redirect my thoughts, give me patience. And even still today, there are things in life like a career, kids, house, that I am still like, give me patience. Give me patience. I don't need that right now. Clearly, you have not opened the door for it. Give me patience and self-control. Let me not go and do it without your say, your go ahead. And if I do, Lord, I'm sorry. He knows me, he knows the hairs on my head, he knows that I lack impulse control sometimes, which is unfortunate. So these are a few of the characteristics that I really mulled over and was like, Lord, please help me better that. So question 5 asked me to analyze my relationship with others and how I prayed over that and why. And so just like how I was struggling with self-control, and I still am because nothing changes overnight, but self-control and patience, I think that it really bleeds into my relationships with others. So I prayed and I was like, Lord, not only let me have patience for you, but let me have patience for others as well. And let me have the ability to control my anger with others when they really are not trying to get on my nerves and they're really not trying to push that button. But Lord, please just come into my heart and change that. Let me see their perspective better. So that's what I was praying on that. And both of these things, question 4 and 5, I really hope I made steps towards the desired changes. Like, I really hope that reminding myself of the characteristics and you know, the relationship I have with God and just meditating on the scripture that I had already written down with my pen and paper. I really hope that did some work. But like I said, Rome wasn't built in a day, as the saying goes. So I hope to see the effects of it and continue to remind myself. I wrote some of these verses down on a sticky note to stick on my mirror to make sure that I really meditate on it some more and hope that it does take effect. And from what I can feel, just spending time in God's presence for 3 hours with having no distractions and nothing but the Bible, a pen, and a paper really is renewing. And I hope that it has taken root in my heart as much as I'd like it to. So question 6 asks, think deeply and say how this experience affected you, if at all. And honestly, sitting 3 hours in the sand with the ocean in front of me, looking at God's creation and beauty, with my Bible and my pen and paper, I would really like to say that it transformed me in an instant. And while there were moments when I was doing this where I was like, yeah, this is what it means to be in his presence, there were other moments where I was like thinking about dinner. And, you know, because I did this in the late afternoon, early evening on the beach, so I got a little bit of the sunset and just got to look at the beauty of that. I was still hungry and distracted and kind of had to keep myself on track. And that's also something that I noticed when I was playing through the characteristics that I wish would improve is my focus and my ability just to sit in his presence and really soak in his love for me and what he wants me to hear. And I think that it was good practice for me to be able to just redirect myself, not get distracted by the waves or not get distracted by the sun and the prettiness, and remind myself that if I'm going to get distracted by that, to remind myself who created it and why he created it and what it means about him and what it means for me in our relationship. And so overall, I think that this experience really did affect me in a good way, but not like in a profound renewal of instant renewal, like aha moment. But it was renewing in the sense of it allowed me to practice that. So this experience, I believe, will help me with future clients as it allowed me to sit and really be in God's presence and remind myself of my relationship, the characteristics I really need to work on, who he is and what he does and all of that. And I think that truly will end up helping me with my clients as it fills my soul and it allows me to pour out to them, but it also allows me scripture to be able to pour into them. And that is really important. And it allows me to provide empathy and patience and self-control with them. And I think that this is something that someone should do at least once in their life, for sure. But anyway, thank you so much for watching.